Hello, everyone. This is Sarah Poet. Welcome to Sacred Remembering Podcast, episode 178. It is so good to be here with you. And these are such rapidly changing times with so much potential. I'm going to be really speaking about this in very real time today because even as I closed my eyes to center to get ready to deliver this podcast this morning, an entirely new frequency was present with the podcast. And if you're watching this on video, you see that there's a lot of light. I'm sitting in a white walled room with a lot of light coming through the windows, and I was specifically instructed to wear this white sleeveless mock turtleneck top today. Which is very interesting because as I closed my eyes, there were crystalline pillars present, and there's very much a crystalline frequency present here, even with like all of this white and this light. Um, and so this is a gorgeous upgrade, honestly, around the energetics of the Sacred Remembering podcast. And I'm so pleased with that. I know, like all of us, I've definitely been in my own next phase of my own sacred remembering. This journey has looked a lot of ways in the last 5 or 6 years since I've been doing this podcast. But the one thing that has always remained the same is that this is for women waking up to the truth of who we are and standing in that truth. And our remembrance becomes deeper and deeper and wider and wider. And this is about the feminine return, the feminine resurrection of the eternal feminine on the planet, and it happens through us. And so this episode is called The Call of Sophia, and I will tell you more about that in just a moment. The Call of Sophia. Do you hear it? It's beautiful. It's coming through. So, yeah, I want to acknowledge and recognize that your time is so valuable. It really is. Like, I talk about these 8 feminine resources that all women have, and we really want to know and acknowledge what those resources are and just be respecting them so much. So, part of that is not taking in too much stimulation or information, and really reserving a lot of time for yourself and your own divine guidance, your own sacred remembrance, on all of those layers and levels of existence: the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. We want to align those as much as possible and align those to nature's principles, and the truth of who you are. So, how do you know if you're in the truth of who you are? It feels good. It actually feels good. It feels like ease. It feels like your soul is playing. It feels like that a lot of the time. It's not so much of the angsty fight or the troublesome, like burdensome, just the incessant nature that the soul path can really feel sometimes, as though it's just kind of like burden after burden. And ultimately it shouldn't feel like that. It should not feel so hard. And you have heard me. I have talked about the things that I have been through as well. And so there will be times on the soul journey, the sacred remembering journey, the journey of remembering the truth of who we are, where we have to go through some crud, okay, like some really hard, gritty parts. And then we are ultimately becoming more crystalline. That is what this is about. And it's not like we're not escaping the physicality in order to do that. I'm still sitting here in a body, talking to you. I am matter. I am material, mother, matter, right? I am those things. And we become more crystalline as we transmute that density. So I will take a moment here to say that if you are at a place in your life where it is kind of crunchy and you would like a partner, a guide, a seer to walk with you on that path, please know that I am available for that if it's a good fit for me and for you. I do let private work in that way. We could call it mentorship. We could call it that energy activation, that soul friend, right? So you can find more information about that at sarahpoet.com. And moving into today's topic, the call of Sophia. The reason that I bring up the time and really allowing yourself to have those moments where you are attuned to yourself, that is deeply implicit in today's transmission here. So, being very discerning about what we are allowing into our system, into our consciousness, into our energy field, right? You may notice that you are becoming more and more sensitive, like the things that you used to just do and be able to handle. Now it's like you come home and you need a couple hours to recover. Well, next time you might not want to get yourself into that situation, right? So we are these beings, ultimately of light, but that is the unification of the Christos and the Sophia, the earthly light. We are these beings that need a lot of time outside of the norm, because we are the ones who are bringing in the future norm. And a lot of you I know are mothers and parents right now to little ones. And the little ones coming in right now are so, oh my gosh, high frequency, angelic, star seeds, all of that. They're not coming in with as many burdens as we agreed to transmute in our lifetimes in this generation. I'm almost 44. So, with every generation, the tasks, the genres of the tasks are a bit different, but we all have our work to do. And if you are a mother right now, caretaking one of those or more than one of those little people, it's just such important work. No matter what you're doing, it's such important work. And really standing in the truth of who we are is the exact activation that we are meant to bring to this planet at this time. And I know for myself, there are a couple of things that even seem like a really good idea that maybe I want to involve myself with, or places I want to go. And when it comes down to it, it's like, no, I have to stay home. And I might not have to meditate one time per day. It might be 3 or 4. It might be like multiple hours. And, there are memes about sorry, I can't make it. I had to stay home. What are you doing? You're just sitting still. You're cultivating regenerative feminine energetics. You're listening to a sacred transmission. Maybe you're in the sacred remembering space, right? So this is very important, and taking that time to cultivate it. And it just feels like the world is moving more and more fast all the time. And so, we really cannot leave it up to the external world to dictate how we use our energy or what we pay attention to, or really what we will be a slave to. Now, I say that word and you might be like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. So stick around as I talk about the feminine and the lunar feminine later. There will be a tie to that enslavement of the feminine principle, right? Because if women are so dang distracted and so dang busy that we can't even get a grip on our own lives, well, that means our energy can be harvested perpetually, and we don't want to do that. And there is a call from Sophia for us to stop doing that and to be in right relationship with the eternal feminine. So speaking of which, last night I had done my weightlifting, I had done my breath work, right? All the things, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and really needed to do those practices last night to feel regulated. And I was getting into a very hot bath, Epsom salts, baking soda in the bath, the whole nine. And a transmission had come through from the Great Mother earlier that day. I had lit a candle, so I moved my candle to the bath and I was getting ready to get in. And you may know that I really love Oracle Girl, Dr. Jacqueline Hobbs. You can look her up. Dr. Jacqueline Hobbs is an incredible just contribution to this planet at this time, and she puts out 2 reboot groups a week. They're purification tracks, and the last one was about the dragon energy rising. So I was very excited, and I was moving toward turning that track on, and this still, quiet voice said, "No, just be in silence. Just be in silence." And you just feel into that, like, the choice to honor the call, even if it's that whisper, that still small, quiet voice that says, "No, just in the bathtub, just, be in silence." Or we can ignore that voice of intuition and just keep on motoring through our day. Well, we're going to miss a lot if we do that. So thankfully, I listened, and I was in the bath, and like, let me be honest about something about myself. I can be rather ho hum. Like, you probably picked up on that from this podcast. I can go on like pretty tumultuous waves. Perimenopausal hormones probably have something to do with that, but I can go on some pretty tumultuous waves of like, okay, I'm in the heartland, I'm in the regenerative feminine, I'm in contact with it all, I see the secrets of the universe. And then, like, in the 3D and in the emotionality, I'm an emotional projector too in the human design. So I ride this wave of like emotional energy. And sometimes like, if I'm overwhelmed, this happens at the end of the day. Sometimes, like, if I've, run out of energy and vitality, it's just like the end of the day. And I can start to maybe think of like all that's not perfect yet, or all the problems I haven't solved yet, those kinds of things. And so I thought that I was getting into the tub. It's like, well, if I'm not listening to Oracle Girl, then I'll probably start like, oh, ho hum, like, this is the state of things. So I just am in that horrible mindset, and I get into the hot, gorgeous bath, and Sophia is there. Sophia, the feminine, and this message, this, like, the voice is more clear. The lights are out, the candles on, and I hadn't told you all of this. I'm coming out with this now, but um, I recently started to channel the Magenta Rose Collective, which is a collective of Sophianic beings. And I'll just tell you a few things about them right now. They're very cosmic. It's like interstellar, and the um, messages from them, or the information that they hold, I'm going to say that we hold, that I hold with them, is this code about the sovereign feminine and the return of the sovereign feminine. So I had the intuition to start the morning pages again. And it's so funny because I have this little white cat who is so ancient in her soul. And she will bat at the blinds in my bedroom to wake me up. It could be to get food, but honestly, I think it's so that I do these morning pages. Like, she's on team Magenta Rose Collective. She's on team, like, okay, Sarah, our souls came for this. Let's get up and do it. Like, for years, I'm not even kidding you. This cat is like this. So no doubt, if my cat wakes me up in the morning, like, there is a reason I need to get up. So I do not validate her by feeding her right away, but I do keep my journal right beside my bed for the morning pages in the morning. So I turn on the light, 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, and start writing. And as I'm writing, it will kind of switch over, like, they're here, their presence is here. So I had this intuition to begin the morning pages again, and it was really so that this could begin coming through a few weeks ago. And it wasn't the first time that I heard of them, because Brooklyn Rain actually channeled for me way back in 2020 that I was here on the part of this collective, the Magenta Rose Collective. And at the time I was like, cool, don't know what that means. Nobody's written about them, okay. And so when they showed up, they didn't actually give me their name, for a while. And actually, when the name came in, I was actually in a session, and we were removing some remnants of some past traumas that had to do with my father and things that I've talked about on this podcast. And so, like, as those remnants were leaving, they were actually giving me the information at the same time, almost to like don't look over there, look here. This is the new coming in. And as those energies were, leaving and leaving and leaving, there was more and more and more space for this channel, which is very it's exciting, but it's deeply honoring, to be quite truthful with you. And it's absolutely activating me in a way that I want to be very responsible with. And so, yes, I can't exactly remember now how I started to share that, but and there's no pause button on. Oh, there is a pause button. Oh my, there is now a pause button. Now, interjection, ask and receive. Like, I have been submitting support tickets to Riverside, where I record this, saying, please add a pause button because sometimes I need a pause. They did it. That's incredible. So yay. Sorry for that interruption, as I just discovered that just now. And I can't even remember exactly where I was, but I was talking about the Magenta Rose Collective, and it is a sovereign collective of Sophianic feminine beings. And, a few weeks prior to this coming in, I was kind of on some, social media, say whatever I want, maybe slightly irresponsibly. And I was saying, like, it's enough to channel yourself. You don't have to say that you're channeling some being or some ascended master. Like, just channel yourself. And so I was kind of hung up with this, right? Because, like, I wasn't necessarily down with this instruction to channel this collective, or to say that I'm a channel for a collective. Obviously, I've embraced this more now. Just put it on my website for an opening that's coming. But what they said to me was, you're not channeling something outside of yourself. You're not channeling a being that you're not connected with. Like, you actually are this. You came from this. So you are channeling the information that your soul has. And, like, it's coming through. Yeah, in these moments, primarily in the writing, but last evening it was also in the bath. So, Sophia, Sophia, like, let's go. Like, what is that? What is the feminine? Well, who am I to try to describe this or define this, like, succinctly, right? But Sophia is the essence of the feminine, right? Like, the eternal feminine. So, one red flag when you are on a path of remembering, and you're out in the world and there's all of this about feminine and masculine, you're going to get a lot of, like, false information, or information from what I would call, like, the fallen matrix. A lot of information with the projections of the people that made the information, right? So we all have limitations, myself included. My goodness, I have so many limitations. And, we know what we know as we know it. And so there's a lot about the feminine that is distorted, that is in the lunar matrix, that is not sovereign. And this is because the whole world has been very confused about what feminine has been for a very long time. And so there's this frequency of Sophia, the feminine of Gaia. It's very big. It's very like it is everything. It is eternal. It is the feminine. It's there are various ways that we can attune to it, channel it. I'm going to be telling you about an opportunity that I'm opening up called the call the call of Sophia, to really get in touch with the various frequencies of Sophia and how we can remember more and activate more. But it's not just one impression of the feminine. I never got into archetypes. I never got into sacred feminine archetypes. I was intrigued most by the archetype of the sacred prostitute, because I had a lot of that, like Magdalene, Rose, priestess, um, in my own remembering and awakening, those codes of like sacred sexuality. That was definitely a part of my walk of remembrance. But the archetypes in general, I mean, a lot of people find them very helpful. I just never felt to go down that road. It was like eternal feminine, eternal masculine. That's really what my soul wanted to remember. And many times I would say, like, I'm still learning, I'm here for it, and I work for the Christos Sophia. I work for the Christos Sophia, period. It will show me the way, right? So that to me is the unified Godhead, like the masculine and the feminine unified Godhead, the Christos and the Sophia, the masculine and the feminine, working together in unity. But it's so much bigger than that, y'all. It's so much bigger than that. It's like the energetics of creation itself. So when we are talking about feminine, masculine, and I at this point, I'm most often talking about the energetics of feminine and masculine. Yes, obviously it's in both. Like we all have both, it comes out in behaviors. But what we're really doing is resurrecting the architecture of our energy body, the resurrecting the architecture of our light body, our energy body, into the 12th dimensional template that is also connected here on the earth. And so for the last few years, you know that I've been channeling a lot about the earth. If you've been coming to my events, we have regenerative feminine events. We go to the earth energy and cycling these frequencies that are available. There's so many of them coming through and becoming available to really replenish and restore. And it's restoring our energy, like our systems, our nervous system, our endocrine system, our brains, our spines. All of that is being activated at this time on the planet, especially if we're conscious to it, especially if we're saying, yeah, we want to do that, right? And, the opportunities are just immense right now, because what's happening is that the feminine, yes, and the masculine, but I'm going to talk about the feminine right now, is actually rehabilitating on the energetic level and on the earth level. Whew. You feel that? Rehabilitating on the energetic level and on the earth level. As I start to talk about this, if you are energetically sensitive, you might be attuning to diamond light frequencies, crystalline frequencies that are beginning to come through as I share some of this. So, yeah, I can really feel that diamond heart frequency and that diamond heart network and grid network. So I'll begin speaking about that. You can just open up your heart. My sternum actually just cracked in my body as I started to attune to that. So opening up to receive. Oh, be curious. Crystalline diamond light frequency. Okay. You just get curious. Like, I want to be more familiar with that, right? And it'll spark in your own remembrance and throughout this. And after you listen to this, it might spark later. And again, I'm going to be talking about this for a very long time, so you can join me in the call Sophia, the new group that's forming, or in any of the spaces that I hold. So, wow, y'all. So the resurrection of the Sophianic frequency, it's happening like I said at this planetary level, but the reason that I talk about the grids and the energy architecture is because these are like the conduits through which the energies move on the earth, through us. And yes, like we need them to flow in feminine and masculine unity. And not to go into too much of what the baddies did, but what they did was set up networks to reroute the feminine energy. And this is very, very, very significant because it's actually a spell that everyone is under. And I want to be really clear about this. Like the things that I'm talking about took me many years to discover, many years to sift through my own system and body and the feminine and all the fucking trauma layers that I had, truly. And, the constriction that happened when I was really attempting to stay safe from these kinds of things ever happening again. And, what I'm experiencing now, and part of why it's so significant that this Magenta Rose Collective is coming through me, is like, again, as I cleared that old, it made more space for the new. And on the daily, what I am having to do is flex the trust muscle to even open to more of my own knowing. It may be that at some point I don't need to say that I channel this collective because I just am that knowledge, right? But I'm in that process right now where it is both and. I do have this human experience. I can articulate it to a point, and then there are still places where I have kept that knowing, or that sight rather, closed, or maybe I didn't want to know for some reason. Maybe I was afraid of my own power, et cetera, et cetera. So more and more information is continually coming through, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And like I said, I'm very humbled by that. But, we are truly going through a period of time right now where it's very important for us to recollect and reclaim the true and actual sovereignty of our feminine energy. And this is what all of my work now boils down to, because just let me go here for a moment. So, you're a woman in this world, you're conscious, you're listening to this podcast, you're on your remembering path. And throughout the course of the day, you might open up your Instagram and scroll. Maybe you see a couple of motivational things. Maybe you open up your Facebook and you see a post about the president that really pisses you off. Maybe you see something else that scares the bejesus out of you, and you are now afraid for the children and the state of the world and what is happening to everyone under the sun. And now you are totally, totally dysregulated. And I know that I am speaking to actually many, many of the listeners right now because I'm watching you all. I am seeing it happen, that you are consenting to your own dysregulation given what the world tells you to pay attention to. Well, welcome to the prime example of your feminine energy being dictated by somebody else. There you go. Like, case in point. So, the feminine, this is so incessant. It was so incessant that the feminine energy was just in so many ways made to be not sovereign, when the nature of the feminine's energy is to be very, very sovereign. It's like not even something you even have to take back, because it is the pure nature of creation that the feminine Sophianic essence of creation would be sovereign, right? Creation itself is sovereign. Creation itself, it's always in love. It's always in partnership. There is no separation. It's always in the crystalline. It's always in the diamond light. It's like it is. It is these things, and we even feel, because we've been living in this fallen matrix, that it's something that we have to reclaim. We have to fight the baddies to get our energy back, is what we think. And then we are like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I guess this is like the game on this planet that's not a lot of fun sometimes. This remembering is not a lot of fun, because there is a lot of suffering on the way to remembering, or like while we're remembering. And the biggest thing that I just see women doing is wasting our energy in opposition. Wasting our energy in opposition. Like, if you took that energy, instead of leaking it onto the social media and going down the rabbit holes and then worrying about the state of the world and worrying about all of the children, and of course, we care about the children, we care about the state of the world, but you just lost yourself. If you took that energy instead and got quiet with yourself in nature, and you were like, what's mine to do? What's mine to create? What's mine to make? Then, and you use that energy, like creation before consumption, right? Creation before consumption. If we did that, we would just take it all back, y'all. Like, that is how important it actually is. So the call of Sophia, this is what I was attuning to last night in the bath. It was like she was just there. She's waiting. Very calm. Very, well, growing less patient maybe, but inherently patient. But here's the thing, we run wild and we think we got to reclaim it. We got to stop all the oppression. We got to like fight for the feminine. We got to fight for everything. That's actually wasting time. And I know, I've done it, right? But here's what she was like, I'm here. And when I'm saying she, I'm like referring to like the grand frequency of this Sophianic essence. You could say Holy Mother. You could say Divine Feminine. But like Sophia, let's call it Sophia, right? And she was like, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you to stop toiling. I'm waiting for you to just, be here. Just listening, just doing this with me will be enough. It'll be more than enough. It'll be like what you came for. So, are you ready? Are you ready to answer that call? And it was like, well, yes, of course, right? That's the path that I've been walking. Yesterday was not the first time I answered yes, for sure. So it feels different than we're used to, is what I'm trying to say. We think we have to fight. We think we have to survive. But there is a different way. And I'm so honored to offer. First, I heard 4-week, but I'm really thinking it's going to be 5. A meditation series. When I say meditation, I don't know that I have the perfect words yet. I'm really talking about a quantum activation, a cellular activation, an activation of remembrance, an activation into the regenerative feminine frequencies of Sophia, an activation into the quantum reality of this gorgeous planet Earth and all that it wants to provide. So we are going to answer the call in March. I love March. That's my birthday month. But I also love it because in this hemisphere, we are moving into more sun, more spring. But it's for everyone, no matter what time of year. So, the call of Sophia is an activation sequence, yeah, deep remembrance, and just a homecoming, like a homecoming. So, it's it's very deep, but also very light. I hope you can feel that. It's like deep and light because when we're bringing the light back to the matter, it's a wholly different frequency than we're used to because we're used to density, we're used to associating this dimension with struggle and hardship and like density. And so, what I'm experiencing more and more lately is like, wow, we can very much be in these gorgeous 3D bodies and experience so much resurrection of the light, the quantum light, and the like resurrection of our light bodies so that we can access this multidimensionality, access the reality of the feminine and masculine, the Christos, Sophia. But also, I've talked about this in other podcasts. We become the partners with the planet. Like the planet needs us. Margaret Jacobson, who was on last week's podcast, she and I did a podcast on her Yin Care podcast last year, and we talked about how we are the acupuncture needles for the planet. So as we resurrect our verticality, we are like activating with the grid. And the Sophianic grid that's coming back online, I mean, it's just so gorgeous. These different plasma frequencies, the diamond heart grid network, yeah, like the water is becoming more crystalline. It's so beautiful. We're going to cover um, like all of that inside of these activations. Sounds like a lot to cover, but we're just going to like do these really succinct and powerful activations in March in this call of Sophia. So we could, that's interesting. I keep saying Sophia in my head, and that's the first time I said it out loud. So that's interesting, like Gaia, Sophia. So I'm paying attention to that because that's like a word that some part of me wants to say, not always Sophia, but also Sophia. If anybody has intel on that, I would love to know. Rhymes with Gaia, so we'll see. Um, and yeah, we're gonna like bring these really robust but really beautiful healing opportunities for you all. So you can sign up for that at sarahpoe.com. Okay, and for this last part here, I want to attempt to address a topic that I feel to mention more often. And then someone this week invited me to talk about it, which I didn't exactly think I would be doing, but here it is, here it comes, which is the lunar feminine as opposed to the solar feminine. So, what everything I was just describing and the sovereign architecture, the planetary architecture, the resurrection of the feminine, all of that I would say is the solar feminine. And there is a quality of sovereignty in that. Whereas, yes, there's a partnership with the masculine, but that's not first and foremost. And if you've tracked my work over the years, I was delusioned into thinking that the union came absolutely first. And it's not that because we have to actually resurrect into this like solar feminine. You'll hear people use the term solar feminine Christ, Sophia, like said it again, interesting. Um, so this frequency is a very, very sovereign earth frequency. We are not used to it. Let me say that again. We are not used to this. We equate being feminine in a body with having to survive something. I'm just going to let that pin drop for a moment. Yeah, it pisses me off too. So we equate being a woman in a body with having to survive something. This was on purpose, okay? And this is from literally millennia of soul remembering and cellular remembering of things like womb enslavement, forced breeding, the diversion of feminine energetics and currencies away from us and our creational centers and diverted into horrible sorts of places, collected for use by the baddies. So our energy was perpetually stolen. Our womb energy was hijacked, diverted. Our wombs were forced to bleed, forced to, um, yeah, like forced hybridization is a reality on this planet, going back for a very, very long time. So our DNA on this planet is like very, very mixed, right? And again, this is everyone. Now we have DNA that's been preserved, or we wouldn't even be having these conversations because we'd be just like all walking around like sheep, just like totally mind controlled, because the mind control programs were exactly what was put into place, like feminine oppression, misogyny, sexual assault, sexual abuse, all of that and more consumptive programming. They were mind control mechanisms. It's happening everywhere. It's actually very, very strong right now, like with all of the AI that's going on and all of that. So, like the war for your attention, for your womb energy, for your time, these are some of the 8 feminine resources that I teach about. The war for those has been waging for thousands of years. So this is inside of our remembering. And I'm thinking about my own path, right? And at first I was like, wait, okay, there's this thing called the feminine, and it's been oppressed, and it's been oppressed in me, so I'm going to walk back to it. Like that was kind of intro, step one, right? And then there was, over the last like 5 years, I thought I was going to step onto this path, find my divine union partner, like live happily ever after. Yeah, right. I mean, I guess it happens for some, but like I'm actually really glad that I'm on this particular path because, like I've said before, I've realized so much that if I was in like a slightly trauma bonded codependent relationship, like I wouldn't have known. So part of what I needed to go through, for my own remembering was like all of these scenarios and circumstances where my feminine energy was not valued. That's how I came up with the 8 feminine resources, right? Because I was like, oh, they wanted that, but they expected it. And they didn't value it, and they kicked me to the curb, or I lost my housing, or, et cetera, right? So the feminine is wanted, it's not always valued. I always say that. The feminine is wanted, the feminine resources are wanted, but they're not always valued. And they were like the resources of the feminine were systematically diverted away from the feminine and diverted away from us thinking that we had, sovereignty, healthy control, like over our own resources, power, decision making. So this has literally been going on like forever. So we don't know, except our souls know. We don't know as humans until we remember via our soul that there is a wholly different template. And a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about like my friend and him going back to Christianity, and I was like, that's not it. And I was saying like something else, and some of you commented on that, like, yeah, something else entirely. Right. So we're resurrecting that remembrance through us. And it's not surprising to me at all that a male friend who goes back to Christianity would not be remembering the resurrection of the planetary Sophianic template or unified template with the Sophia. Like, who's going to remember that, right? We are, very clearly, we are the ones who are going to remember. So let's look at the lunar enslavement. Okay, so it's so wild how they even did this, and I don't even know that I can articulate that, but there were many energetic disruptions to the sovereign grids, and there were diversions away from the central channel, and away from like womb sovereignty. So you can imagine that if you have an energetic channel all around your body and it's totally sovereign and it is the connection between you and God and the earth, right? And all of your energy and all of your power and all that you need is in that central channel. If humans forget that, or if we have like an insert, that's, AI put into somewhere into our energy field that causes us to forget, then what we do is like pretty blindly give our attention, energy, and power to the other thing. So the moon is actually a part of this, which is so wild to say. But it is an insertion, and it created a pull on feminine and on the womb, specifically on the womb. And it created like disruption in the magnetics. So, we need clear magnetics and clear electrics. And in a past few episodes, I can't remember exactly which, I think the episode on time, I was talking about the false masculine and how it was actually a false electric. So, we have this electric that was disrupted on purpose. And then we have the magnetics that were disrupted on purpose. And this was put into exactly how they would do it. I can't say, but like disrupting the electrics and the magnetics throughout, the planetary architecture, and also this like moon satellite thing and some of the other planets. I mean, it's so wild, but it diverted the organic patterns of creation and started to, like I said, reroute some of the core creational energetics into like phantom spaces and the Baphomet grids and the loose tanks and like inversion spaces, right? Like black hole kind of situations. So so this, you can see, disrupted feminine and masculine from even being able to relate well with one another. And we see this really impacting, divine union couples, divine union relationships, because we are healing these patterns, like precisely these patterns on the planet right now. And we need to remember this. We need to do this, or we'll keep like missing each other. So one way I've seen this is I actually experienced this. I was with a very, very important soul mate, soul union partner on my path. There's lots of stories I could tell you or tell myself about what that was. But what I'll stick to today was that I think there was either like we were a great reminder for one another nonetheless, and an opportunity to really come into our own solar architecture and this unified, like masculine and feminine unification in the light body, unified with source in each of us, because we didn't have that knowledge at that time. We certainly woke each other up to that, or he woke me up to that. But what was at stake was a choice between like solar and lunar. And the lunar feminine, he ended up like going back to another woman who was very much in a lunar orientation. Now, I'm not saying I was perfect at the time either, but there was a lot of manipulation, a lot of hooking with mother, with womb, with manipulation around the children. These hooks, these like controls over men, and it's a false womb. It's a false feminine energy. Now I'm letting go of that example. And I'll share about another vision that I had just a few months ago. We were in a grid work session here in my living room in Asheville after Hurricane Helene. And I may have shared this story on the podcast. I know I have shared it, I think, on an Instagram live. But nonetheless, what we saw, like, actually, I'll back up a little bit. So we were doing the grid work, and I was I was dying in a river. Have I told you all this story? This is a good story. So I was dying in a river, and I was the important thing was like I was very tired. I was very tired. I am tired as a human being. I'm tired. And this walk is like, well, okay, a part of getting free of the lunar feminine, of these false energetics, for me was like, I've talked about this before, the no more moment, right? So when we have that, like, okay, I don't know what the fuck's taking my energy. I don't know why the fuck I'm still depleted. I don't know what causes these men to try to take from me, but no more. And we have that no more moment, right? So there's time between the no more and then the energy like sorting out, right? So I've very much been living that in the last few years. So in this vision, I was very content to die in a nearby river and be chewed up by the fishies. I could feel them nibbling on my toes. And the other women were like seeing, they were seeing the masculine and wanting the masculine to help, and they're coming back and all this. And I was like, I'm over it. I'm just gonna decay right here, right? I'm gonna become one with this land and this river, and I'm perfectly content with that. And turns out I wasn't allowed to do that. I wasn't to get my ass back up. I think that all happened before I started recording the weekly podcasts again. So this is me getting my ass back up. But etherically, it took me about 2 weeks. Like I was tracking it etherically. And for about 2 weeks, I was in this river. And it was like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna come back. But what my friends were seeing was that like one woman was having extreme anger at the masculine for like not showing up, for not helping. I mean, I'm already over it. I'm like, they don't help, they just want to take. I'm over here dying in the river, right? That's where I was. Part of the lesson was like, Sarah, you need to keep healing your relationship with the masculine if that's what you think that is. But then so I like attune with them to what they're seeing. And what we saw, I'm still in the grid work, what we saw was this big false womb in the sky. And it was like a blimp. It was like blimp, it was tethered, but it was false, but it was programmed. And all the men in the land were oriented toward this false womb. Like they were gaga. They were like drooling. They were under a spell. They were willing to serve this false womb. They were like zombies. They were fucking zombified. I'm not even kidding you. And so what we did, by this time I did, get out of the river and help. But we dismantled that false womb. So the lunar feminine is in part also a false womb. So there's a way, well, there are ways that it plays out with the feminine. There are ways that it plays out with the masculine. And women, it's very important that we realize, it's happening to everyone. So it's not a question of whether or not lunar feminine exists. It's, well, how is this still controlling my life and my feminine energy? And, behaviorally, we need to look at um, those oppositional frequencies with men. Like, where do we think we need to fight for our energy from men? Where are we really mad at men? Where is it just so fucking oppositional that it's exhausting? That is where our lunar feminine is at play. And then you could say, well, I'm in a very happy relationship. I can just kind of hear that, like, or so and so. You look, I look on Instagram too. I see the pictures of like the very, the dancing couples, this and that. Just because there's function doesn't mean that the lunar feminine isn't at play, right? Like, okay, I'm going to give you another example. And I know I'm a little all over the place with this topic. This is kind of the first time that I've tried to like bring it down and articulate it. So, lunar feminine is also kind of a hyper focus on the moon. Well, when you're waking up to feminine, there's plenty out there that tells you to look at the moon and moon worship. Please don't do this. Ugh, I feel so gross, like I could gag in my throat. Moon worship is directly hooking into this program that they want you to hook into. So, what does the moon do? The moon orbits. The moon is dependent. The moon like waxes and wanes and you know is completely like dependent on the sun. And I know I'm even challenging things like indigenous, interpretations of like masculine is sun, feminine is moon. I disagree. I wholly disagree. These implants, these like inversions have been in the collective consciousness for thousands and thousands of years. So it's, just because our bodies bleed with the moon, or just because an indigenous culture says it, it still doesn't mean to me that that has to be my truth. Like, we can find evidence of, yes, the moon pulling on the blood in my body, but that does not mean that I consent to being a lunar being, right? So if you have questions about that, reach out to me, preferably via my email instead of a social media channel, sarah@sarahpoet.com. And the way that the Magenta Rose Collective is just guiding me through this right now is to realize more and more deeply the incessant ways that I have made my energy, or I have consented to my energy being dependent on a man, or even dependent on anything outside of myself. This does not mean that we are not collaborative beings. That is not what I'm saying whatsoever. But we're talking about this in the Sacred Remembering community right now. So if I have a story that someone took something from me, and I can find evidence for that story, there are facts about that. When I tell that story and I believe it, my energy responds a certain way. So if I have a story that men oppress women, or that a man has oppressed me in the past, the way my whole system, body, energy, endocrine, how safe I feel, nervous system, etc., the way I respond to that, it still hooks me into that quote unquote reality. And that is lunar. I know, like, I almost don't even want to be saying it. It's like, what? So this is a whole lot for us to kind of ideally get free of. But I trust that I would not even be having this conversation with you right now. I trust that specifically because Sophia is saying, answer the call. Right now, we can get free of the lunar entrapments, the womb enslavements, the fucking insidiousness of what this has been. And the gorgeous thing about this time on the planet right now is that, yes, more and more of us are awakening, but I think we have stronger and stronger tools. Like, I can't imagine that my soul has remembered this level of information for many, many lifetimes. Like, I feel like I've been suffering for many, 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 many lifetimes. And this is the lifetime where, I'm like, hang on, that whole entrapment is false and actually is a choice. I mean, it blows your mind because it's like, wow. But this is the level of awakening on the planet. And what I want to say in conclusion with this call of Sophia is that I've said this before, but I'm trying to get this feeling that I'm having across of like the planet herself is becoming sovereign. The planet herself is becoming sovereign. There's communication coming from off planet to deep in the planet that's helping to bolster the planet, bolster us. Like I said, there are so many supportive frequencies at this time, truly here for the true rehabilitation of the feminine, of the energy body, and of the Sophia. So that is the invitation at this time. Not all of the like human, the banter, like we're not doing that. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in these quantum experiences that help to heal the light body itself, the soul body itself, you could say, and reconnect that into source and into the sovereignty of the eternal feminine and masculine. That is what I am here for. You have a unified template potential. You have a unified template potential, and you have it. It is within you. So I'm here for as long as is needed, right? Like they say, ideally, I want to work myself out of a job, right? Because I'm here to help you to activate the remembrance of your sovereign architecture and to live as that. And then as you're doing that, you go and you like teach others more about what like you're here to teach, right? Because that is when we are less susceptible and less controllable to these forces. Beautiful, beautiful. So I know that I've said a lot of big things in today's podcast. We didn't get to the energy activation. I like to include those when I can, but I'm also trying to honor your time and mine with keeping this podcast at about an hour. So that was definitely a verbal energetic transmission, but I am more and more all the time very interested in us just going into the silence and into the quantum spaces and activations together. Please join me at sarahpoet.com. Step into the call of the Sophia. Answer that call in March. I'm going to make this available for like less than $300. So you can find this, be on my email list for the information, or check out sarahpoet.com. We're going to do this weekly in March. And this is just, I really, really want us again to come together more, to be in the energy activations more, to be in our own space and our own silence more, be with nature more, and really attune to the wisdom of our own sacred channels that is coming through. I do not care to see women, I'm just being honest right now, to see us emulate the bullshit about, you have to do this much on this social media channel or that social media channel in order to have a business. Like I'm over that. I am leading the way, maybe for some of you who are listening, who are wondering, how do we do business in this new earth paradigm? Well, truthfully, we're going to remember. We are going to remember, and it's going to come through us when we are resurrected in our light body, when we are as sovereign as possible, and when we are creating before we are consuming. So if you want to, you can do whatever you want anytime you want. But, if we're going to be online, but then we're also going to be stressed about what we've seen, or we're going to, prioritize something that ultimately does not matter over what we are here to do, then we're just wasting time. And, I'm just not here for that. So I'm just not here for that. So, I'm really inviting you um, to a certain depth, like to a certain depth and to a steadiness. I said to one of the women in the sacred remembering community that I really feel that there is this invitation to settle. And I said that weeks ago, and now I realize that, this is the call of Sophia. This is the call to step into the energy of, like, settle into your own being. Settle, be here. Trust that you're meant to be here. Trust that what is going to come through you and your children are exactly what the world needs. So you need to attune to that first. And the call of Sophia will be a portal way to activate your energy and activate this remembrance and the partnership between you, the earth, all of these energies and these frequencies that are really here to, it's like, create a robustness around us, right? So that we are enhanced. Maybe protected is a word, but that's not quite right. Like that, this robustness that is naturally ours. The feminine has so much to do with that. The feminine is like the force of the mother, right? We're talking about the mother. It's not a meek frequency, right? But it's also not rigid. It's also not totally like shaking in your boots, nervous system madness, but fighting like a banshee. That's not it, right? It is the fierceness of like a mother animal in nature protecting her young. It is the steady abiding of a wild animal not wasting any energy until it is time to pounce, right? This is like just a bit of that frequency that I am speaking to. Again, it is an honor to be bringing this through to you all. You can find more at sarahpoet.com. And I will see you next week. We're going to be diving further into this topic of purpose with Amber Sansala of Living with Freedom. And yeah, really talking about some of these 2025 activations and really further stepping into the truth of who you are. So if I can help you at all, you know where to find me. And thank you so much for being here. If you liked this episode or any other episode, please share it with a friend. Yeah, hope to see more of you inside of the live community, and reach out anytime. Much love.